got all the essential players on, so I'll call the meeting to order. It's 10:30, Monday, January 11th, 2021. This is a meeting of the Executive Committee of the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission. And under the governor's emergency declaration and changes to the Open Meetings Act, we are meeting remotely. And to the extent we need to have any votes, we will be doing a roll call vote. And Jeanette, our executive director, is meeting in our regular place of business. So thank you, Jeanette, for coming into the office. So the first item of business is to approve the minutes of the November 2nd, 2020 Executive Committee meeting. Is there a motion to do so?
I'll move so.
Thank you, Dennis.
Second.
Second. Okay, and any additions or corrections? Okay, hearing none, Jeanette, would you call the roll call vote, please?
Sure. Mayor Jurasek,
Yes.
Joe Nunzio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Evan Summers,
Yes.
Dennis Ryan,
Yeah.
Brian Gazer,
Yes.
Superintendent Cassell,
Yes.
Karen Rovas,
Yes.
and Aaron Frame.
Yes.
Thank
Great,
you.
thanks. We'll move on to item 3, which is an update on the IGA renewal. So Aaron, I guess that's you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and Happy New Year. The IGA was introduced, I think it was on Wednesday, the 16th of December. We are on track for an approval in late January. The next council meeting is Wednesday, January 27th. There will be a committee meeting for the Committee on Aviation before that because it's an aviation matter. That's yet to be determined. So in December, like right after Thanksgiving, my coworkers asked me to change the date on the IGA that we had talked about. Instead of giving all of you 1 month to counter execute, we changed it to 2 just because of our late introduction, late approval. So you're gonna have all the month of February to adopt that with your village and school boards. So right now we're in the queue and that's a good thing. And in a couple weeks, we'll have a committee meeting and then theoretically full approval by the city council. Once that's approved, I'll get that package with Jeanette and we will send 3 or more originals to all of you for your counter execution. So at this point, consider getting this introduced to your village board or school board sometime after January 27th.
Hey, Aaron. So like my committee that this would need to go to is February 2nd. So would it be possible to get an unexecuted copy that we could then take forward, and we would obviously execute the copies we get for you after that, but that would keep us on track to hit the end of February.
Yeah, Karen, is it helpful? So when the ordinance was introduced, it's online, and I have a PDF that I could give you essentially the ordinance as introduced. Theoretically, there will be no changes. So the introduced version will also be the adopted version, but I'm happy to send you, I can send that to Jeanette today for the ordinance, like it's got the tracking number and the barcode and all that. And if that's helpful, I can send that today.
Yeah, that would be great because then we can make sure we're hitting our committee dates without any issues. So that would be helpful. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be helpful for all of us, I think, Aaron. We meet twice a month, the first Monday in February and then the third Monday in February. And it would be good to make sure we get it on at least one of those agendas.
Okay. I'll send that to Jeanette today. So like I said, the city council is scheduled to meet on Wednesday, January 27th, and that's when we expect full approval.
Okay, could you put that in whatever you email you use to transmit it to Jeanette? Because yes, we do an information packet for our trustees every weekend, and we could introduce that into their packets beforehand, even before it comes up for an official vote.
Okay, sure.
Great. Any further questions on this for Aaron? Okay, seems to be moving along very smoothly. Thank you, everyone, for the hard work they put into it. Okay, let's go on to item 4, which is the interim flag quiet report. And Ryan, are you going to start that, or Aaron,
Sure.
or Joe, or who?
Aaron, would you like me to take this one?
Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning, Ryan. Happy New Year. As the IFQ program is coming to a close this month, I just wanted to Remind everyone, the ONCC made the recommendation for the IFQ program back in December of 2017. It was finally approved by the FAA in July of 2019, and we began later that year in November. We had some interruption due to construction in the middle, but we are in place for approximately 11 months. As we're coming to a close at the end of this month, IFQ will end on the morning of January 31st because the airport is closing runway 9 right 27 left for the construction in relation to the extension on February 1st. So we are currently in week 46, and we continue to report weekly summary reports on the website, and we'll do so through the end of the total program, which will end on the week of January 24th. We'll continue to discuss the program and the results at future ONCC meetings and the Flight Quiet Committee meetings. But just a reminder, that program is ending at the end of this month.
Okay, questions for Ryan? Great, thank you. Nothing unexpected here. I think it'll be interesting to see if the public notices whether or not it's ending, given the somewhat reduced volume of air traffic we're all experiencing right now. But we shall, we'll be observing what goes on. Thank you. Okay, Joe, let's move on to the Flight Quiet Committee update.
All right. Got some notes here because there's a lot to talk about. The Flight Quiet Committee met on Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. If you recall, at the last executive meeting, Evan said that at the December 8th Flight Quiet meeting, he would ask that alternatives D, E, F, and G be reinstated for consideration in the spirit of cooperation and the purpose of each alternative being voted on separately. Also at the meeting, there was discussion of voting on for each alternative separately as to whether they should be reinstated or not. But there was a discussion that ensued as to whether that was appropriate or not, or whether there's clarification that needed to be needed as to why it needed to be done. And so I simply withdraw the motion and to move on. There were several suggestions about how to prioritize the alternatives that were discussed. By the time the meeting ended, I must say, Evan asked what to expect at the next meeting. And if I could just talk about the last. One of the things that concerned all of us at the last meeting is it almost turned into a discussion of between the experts. And there was very little discussion going on with the members themselves because the experts basically monopolized the conversation. That's not saying that some of our members didn't speak. Of course they spoke, but it was more like a discussion between the experts. And having said that, what I said to Evan is that it's time that the committee, the voting members of the committee, start thinking about eliminating some of the alternatives, not disposing of them, but simply putting them on a back burner so that we can concentrate on those alternatives that we think would fit our needs best, so that there could be further evaluation of them and tweaking them. We need two alternatives look at a primary and a secondary, so that the experts can begin to look at them more thoroughly and help us decide what needs to be done with them. Having said that, if we pick an alternative that doesn't seem to be working out, that doesn't mean we can't go back and get another one. But I think we need to start focusing. The committee itself, the voting members, need to start focusing on what we need to do. Having said all of that, what I realized as chairman, and after discussions with everybody, is that I need to tighten up on using Robert's rules a little bit. I've been allowing the discussions to be a little bit too freewheeling. And because of that, sometimes they digress, sometimes they go nowhere, and sometimes it just turns into a discussion between the experts as to which alternative they feel is the best. which doesn't help the voting members sometimes as to what they need to do, because the voting members are the ones that make the decision, the final decision. So having told you that, the Roberts rules will be applied in a much stronger way. So what will happen at the next meeting, let me give you, for instance, if an alternative is brought up to decide whether we're going to continue using it or not. The motion will be brought to the floor, first and second, and a discussion opens up. Now the discussion will be just with those that are voting members only. And the discussion will be more in a way of a debate, meaning that the voting member will have an opportunity to tell the rest of the committee why they feel this is a good idea, this alternative is a good idea, or why they feel it's a bad idea. And we'll give them approximately 3 minutes. The 3 minutes is not written in stone, but what I found at meetings is that if you give somebody 3 minutes, they will usually say what they need to say within that time. And if you give them too much time, they'll simply begin to repeat what they say. So we're looking at around 3 minutes. The discussion will be more in the form of a debate. All the voting members will have an opportunity to say what they need to say. And then we'll go around a second time for those members that wish to rebut whatever somebody else said individually without discussion. At that point, we will bring the question for a vote, and we'll vote on that particular motion. Is there any questions?
Joe, that makes a lot of sense to me because the experts are there not as parties in their own right, but to advise our members. And we know that some of our members are more comfortable using one expert versus another. And I've welcomed that kind of credible expert input. We're not, as members, as mayors, even as trustees, any of us, even though we've been heavily involved in the discussion, we don't have the expertise in a technical sense. But it is our job as members to narrow this down and come to a conclusion. And I think your process gets us there. I think we need to keep in mind that the experts have no vested interest in us reaching a conclusion. They've got more billable hours the more this gets dragged on. And it's the members who need to be comfortable. And I like the idea of having a moderated debate, so to speak, to make sure that everyone is heard and that everyone can consider what their colleague members are saying. And ultimately, there's more art to this than science because it's the impressions of our constituencies on the ground, which has a lot more art than science behind it. And I think your methodology gets us there. Otherwise, 2 years from now, we'll still be at this, and that's going to be counterproductive. So that's my 2 cents worth. I'd be interested in getting any other input onto this or support for what Joe wants to do.
If I could just say this too, that if a voting member wishes to yield their time to an expert because of some need for clarification, they can do that for as long as they want, up to 3 minutes. But yielding to the expert is just for a clarification they need to help their debate. It's not to give an expert their time to tell us what we've already heard a few times already. Okay. So, all right, that's all.
Dennis, I see your hand up. You're on mute, Dennis. Dennis, you're muted.
I have to agree 100% with Joe on this. The committee gets out of hand lately, and we sit there and waste our time for an hour or 2, and we haven't got that much accomplished. I think we can get a lot more accomplished by just getting together and talking it out. And the decisions are there already. We know what we want to do, how we want to do it. what we have to do now is discuss what we think is fair for our communities.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I also like to say that I'm going to try to keep the meetings to an hour and a half. That doesn't mean at an hour and a half, I put the gavel down and say goodbye. What I'm trying to say though is that what I found, and I apologize for this because I taught law school classes for 22 years, and I taught night classes, which are 3 hours long. And what I found is that if you keep somebody sitting there taking notes and listening for an hour and a half or more, they simply begin to lose interest. They begin to wander. And I'm afraid that might be happening to our meetings too when they go to 2 hours and beyond. So having said that, I'm hoping to be able to focus the discussion well enough so that we can do what we need to do in about an hour and a half. Any other discussion, any other thoughts?
Okay, Joe, I'm sensing overall support for your approach to move forward. As you know, my philosophy, whether it's been public participation at our general meetings or in committee meetings like this, is to make sure we're as inclusive as possible. But when that inclusivity results in just moving the decision date further out and slowing down the process, when we think that our voting members are actually starting to reach conclusions, we should just drive it through, and we need to have a little discipline. We've been struggling with how to do that with our village board meetings now that we're on remote platforms as well. How do you keep somebody from monopolizing a meeting? But Joe, I think your approach is good, and I'm sensing overall support for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing is that we're looking at 2 meetings in January.
Yes, yes. I hope to listen in on at least one of them. Okay, let's move on then to consideration of our agenda for Friday's meeting. Excuse me. I need to get a humidifier.
After everything I said, I don't blame you for choking.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a glass of water, but take a look at the agenda and I'll be right back.
Can I ask a question while the mayor's getting a glass of water? Did the ONCC take formal action on the IGA? I cannot remember when we voted on that.
Oh, wow, I don't remember either.
Well, I know the executive committee looked at it. So I think there were informal discussions, Karen. I don't think the ONCC took a final vote because we had edits up until the last minute. So anything you would have looked at would have been slightly modified thereafter.
So do we need to on Friday, I guess is my question.
No.
No? Okay.
By the 2/3 of the members have to approve it, and your signature, your designee's signature for each member will achieve that result. So it's not needed to do a full vote. That would be above and beyond what's needed.
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you. Yeah, I think we want to make sure that each member feels that they are able to make an autonomous vote, and that if we somehow have an agreement by the entire commission, that somehow it ties their hands in terms of how they can vote. That's why we won't take a vote on it this Friday. So we will hear a report on the COVID testing at the airport. And then we'll go into the City of Chicago's report. My items are informational and basically mentioning the online aviation noise symposium and our ad hoc nominating committee. Joe, you'll report on Fly Quiet, and I think that will be the most important part of our discussion to get everybody up to speed on what's going on there. And then we have Jeanette's report. So it's a pretty focused meeting. And as I've repeatedly said, the Fly Quiet Committee's work is really the important work. Going back to the IGA renewal, we have heard from the governmental committee, Karen and Evan. You have reported to us both in executive and in the general meetings. So we've been following the progress of that all along. So it just hasn't been a unilateral effort on behalf of CDA or the Chicago City Council. So is there any suggestions to revise this agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve Friday's meeting agenda.
I'll move so.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Dennis and Karen. Any further discussion? Okay, let's take a vote on that, please.
Mayor Jurasek,
Yes.
Joe Nunzio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Evan Summers,
Yes.
Dennis Ryan,
Yes.
Brian Gazer,
Yes.
Superintendent Casal,
Yes.
Karen Robles,
Yes.
and Aaron Frame.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So our agenda is set for Friday. And are there any comments from the members before we go to comments from the audience?
Mayor, we have a comment from Ernie of
Okay.
Park Ridge.
Yes, Ernie.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. I have a question. I guess I would direct this to Karen and Evan. Don't we need to clear this from committee before? And I'm talking about the IGA, what City Council for the City of Chicago is now looking at. Doesn't this need to be kicked from committee to the full commission before the commission can vote on it?
The commission's not going to vote on it.
Yeah, and Ernie, from a committee perspective, we concluded all of our reviews and edits, and then CDA provided that for our kind of final review, and we provided kind of the go-ahead to CDA once we agreed that all of our comments had been incorporated. So I know committee wrapped up our work. My question was just the logistics, and I think that Mayor Jurasek brings up a good point about if the ONCC votes, the individual members need to kind of have their own process to sign off on the IGA. So, but from a committee perspective, we did resolve all of our kind of outstanding items, and CDA incorporated all of those edits into the IGA.
Understood. So Mayor, do I understand correctly, just for clarification, that the full commission does take no other vote after the City of Chicago comes back to the members with the executable form of the new IGA?
That's right. It's up to each individual member then as to whether they want to ratify that agreement.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, it can be a little confusing here.
Mayor, we have a comment from Cynthia Schultz of JDA.
Okay, Cynthia. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year, Mayor. I just want to commend the return to Robert's Rules of Order and just let you know and the committee know that SOC and JDA all appreciate the amount of attention the Fly Quiet Committee has given to gathering input. We could not be in more agreement with you that it's time to tidy up our business processes and move forward with some alternative. We appreciate the opportunity to be part of the process and have always tried to honor that by putting all of our communications to the committee, Joe, and the full committee in writing to be transparent. And there's quite a process that leads up to that because we first, have to gain concurrence from our members at SOC. And we have been real committed to putting those things in writing so that whatever we represent is first of all transparent and can support the process. And as far as including opportunities to speak in the broader meeting, we fully support Robert's Rules of Order and will be ready to support anybody if we're called on, if and when. And I just want to commend the process as a whole. We recognize the scope of what's happening here is huge, and the intelligence of the individual members regarding noise is much more than what we see around the country. So, you know, I commend the committee members and the time that they've taken to learn and deal with these difficult subjects. And we just want to continue participating and support the process where we can.
Thank you, Cynthia. I think we all appreciate the constructive nature of JDAs and your individual participation in this process. And you're right, you know, when a few of us are able to go to these national conferences, I'm always amused by some participants from other parts of the country who seem to want to razzle dazzle with jargon and initials and stuff like that. But the intelligent thought process is nowhere near what our members have committed to. This is no small feat. Particularly when you're dealing with the general public might think of as just political members, you know, elected mayors and trustees and aldermen, but our active members truly have been intellectually engaged in this process for the betterment of all of us. So thank you all.
Mayor,
Anyone else?
we have a comment from Dan Dwyer.
Okay, good morning, Dan.
Morning, thank you. And we certainly appreciate the time we've been allotted and participation. I guess it's been 5 years now. I'm trying to figure out where we fit into these new rules since we're not an expert. We're certainly unpaid, although paid with gratitude, I guess. So I guess that's a question for Joe. How do we fit into this discussion? Also, given that we introduced some of the alternatives.
The only people that will be involved in the discussion or debate will be voting members for these. It's not to say you won't be able to have an opportunity to participate if one of the voting members chooses. But in order to facilitate this operation, we have decided that the voting members should be the ones to take the first crack at the discussion.
Can I make a suggestion then? If prior to the discussion, and I would certainly support even the experts being given the same 3-minute opportunity prior to the discussion, and then let the committee members handle the discussion from that point forward and defer any questions. So outside of that discussion, that there would still be an opportunity to at least provide some input, because we've invested an incredible amount of time in this. To be excluded from any input, I think would be unfortunate.
Well, I don't think you've been excluded at all. You've been given every opportunity for the past 5 years.
Can I ask a question, Joe?
Yeah, Karen.
Dan, I guess the question I have for you is, what's the new information that's going to be introduced? Because I think when we left the last meeting, we were left with sort of the understanding that we'd received kind of the input that we needed on all of the alternatives, and that now was the time to kind of debate between members what we felt the merits or potential downfalls of the different alternatives might be, and that what Joe has proposed would allow us then, if we had questions on, say, a JDA or a fair alternative, to then kind of turn over our time to the appropriate sort of advising member and ask for that clarification. But so I guess, because I think part of the frustration I experienced at the last meeting was this sense of kind of going in circles, and that we're not actually introducing new information. We're just rehashing the same information about kind of a fixed set of alternatives at this point. So is there new information that FAIR is proposing to introduce with what
Yes.
you're setting up here?
And that was going to be my second question. Evan made a request at the last meeting on behalf of SOC to introduce some materials and recommendations, which was honored. We made the same request and have yet to hear a reply. So I guess the second part is, are we going to hear a reply or be offered that same opportunity?
So I have seen a letter from SOC it was signed by Mayor Johnson, and it sort of discussed various alternatives, came up with a recommendation. Have you prepared a similar letter?
We've prepared our version of the analysis of the current alternatives and really could only do that post this last meeting because we didn't know which alternatives would be moving forward. So we provided that for all 7 alternatives. Prior to that, it had been, down to 3. So similar to what SOC did, they did provide.
Has that been shared with the committee?
What SOC provided
No,
has been.
what you are now wanting to provide.
We didn't receive an answer as to whether we're going to be allowed to share it. We asked 2 weeks ago. I followed up with Jeanette. I know it had been forwarded to Karen and Joe, and we never heard a reply.
Well, can we get out what Dan wants, Jeanette, for the next meeting so that the members could take a look at it?
If I have the materials by this afternoon, yes.
Okay. Then Dan, you'll get the same opportunity as SOC did.
Can we make it tomorrow?
Okay.
Okay, you'll have it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we want to make sure anybody has any input like this well ahead of time. This is not something you spring at the members at the meeting. And just as SOC put their information out, I would expect you to have done the same. So, okay, we've got a method in place to get your information out.
Very good, thank you.
Okay,
We have one last comment from Suzanne.
okay, Suzanne, good morning.
Good morning. I just want to, first off, thank you for giving us the opportunity. And again, as Dan had said, we had asked 2 weeks ago, and while we are not experts, we have done a lot of sleuthing and research as residents and concerned citizens. And as Dan mentioned, the information that we have is new and is worth looking at. And I just wanted to also comment to your comment, Mayor Jurasik, that the experts aren't paid and they only want to offer their expertise. I submit they are being paid by the various communities. SOC, those experts, the JDA is being paid, and they are being paid to move forward down the goal line, the communities that are paying them. So just wanted to put that in, and I appreciate that we have this opportunity to talk, but and I know these individuals on this committee and in the ONCC are part of the community. A lot of community members and resident members still don't feel like they are represented, excuse me. And it seems on regards to FAIR, every time we try to participate and contribute and to be part of the constructive decision-making process that affects us all, it seems like the rules change. And that's just a level of frustration. We try very hard to play and participate within the rules. And every time we do something, it seems like it changes. We will again amend to the committee and the will, but it's just frustrating because, as Dan said, we've been part of this for 5 or 6 years. We are just as vested as all of you, and we want, just like all of you, the best results for noise abatement that we can get for the largest amount of people, because it's going to be I live over 2 runways now that I didn't. So it's in my best interest, as well as other people who don't speak or don't come, that we get the best alternative that we can. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it's been decided that FAIR as an advisory member will be sharing their materials with us by tomorrow morning so that it can get out to the committee. And you may have misunderstood, and it might just be my dry throat, but I said that the advisory consultants have a vested interest and are not coming to a conclusion because it increases their billable hours. So that's the opposite of what I heard your interpretation of my words to be. But in any event, putting all of that aside, we have had constructive participation from everyone. And our job now, under Joe and Karen's leadership, is to narrow the alternatives down and get us to a workable agreement that we can put forward so it can be implemented by the time the ONP is completed. We know that's going to be a difficult target to reach, but we need to work very hard to reach that target. So thanks everyone again. Jeanette, any other public comment?
No, Mayor.
Okay, great, thank you. So our next executive committee meeting will be March 1st, and we will see each other via this meeting format on Friday. Thank you all, and is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move. So
Second,
We have a motion and a second. We'll take the roll call vote, and please indicate that you could fully participate.
Mayor Jurasek,
Yes and yes.
Joe Nunzio,
Yes, yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes and yes.
Evan Summers,
Yes and yes.
Dennis Ryan,
yes and yes.
Brian Gazer,
yes and yes.
Superintendent Cassell, Karen Robles,
Yes and yes.
and Aaron Frame.
Yes and yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we are adjourned. See you all on Friday. Thank
See
you.
you on Friday. Bye-bye.
See you all.
Good day.
Have a nice week.